Alright, so I picked up all these PC parts for $200. Keyboard, mouse, power supply, 8 gigs of RAM, DDR2, motherboard, the Q6600, this aftermarket heatsink, 500 gigabyte, 7200 RPM hard drive, HD 6850, and just this ugly case. Not the monitor or speakers. So all this stuff, $200. I'm gonna throw it together, see if it even works. Alright, so let's have a look at this case. It's actually probably the worst case I've ever seen. It's like this panel opens here. Wiring here, looks like maybe some LEDs in the front. Missing a few panels, no big deal. Power button, reset. I guess power LED, hard drive LED maybe. Panel missing. Some intake here. There's some vents here on the side. Top is all solid, no ventilation. Has this very ugly fan intake. Very small, it's probably gonna be pretty loud. Back's pretty well normal. Got a power supply mount on top. Motherboard area here. And these slots that are all missing. I've already taken off the thumb screws. So typical layout. Motherboard standoffs are already installed. Some extra bays here and here. There's our wiring for the front panel and everything. The sound, however, is separated, so that'll be fun to try and figure out, along with the USB. Figure that guy out later. Anyway, it's not important. Let's get going on the motherboard. Okay, so here's our motherboard. Not really sure much of the specs on it, but it looks like we can put in an SLI if we want. We're gonna have to figure out all the output. There's a bunch of little fans here. It's like some cooling. It's definitely an older style motherboard. RAM slots. Now I do not like how this CPU cooler is mounted. Hopefully we can spin this so that this fan is actually exhausting it through the back, because this is just going to feed heat to the power supply, which is not going to probably be a very good idea. No, I think that's the case, so I have to figure out the direction of that fan. On the back here, we just got your audio, USBs, peripheral connections, all that good stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and try and swing around this heatsink, I guess. So now I see why the motherboard, or the heatsink, was mounted that way. If you look, slides up here is where it was. If I try and turn this fan right here doesn't quite line up. It kind of bumps into that. Definitely going to put some new thermal paste on here too. This looks kind of dried out, but we're definitely going to have to do something with this fan. So I started to take off the thermal paste. I don't know if you can tell from the video, but the consistency is almost like bubble gum. I'm actually having to scrape this off. Try the alcohol, no luck. Just gonna have to scrape it. It's gonna be fun trying to get that off. Okay, so there's the processor. Cleaned up a little bit, a couple little scratches, but not too big of a deal, I don't think. Just gotta polish up this heatsink and we should be good to go and put this back on. So I'm gonna just grab the CPU. There's a little arrow here on the left hand bottom corner. Just gonna line it up with that little arrow right here. Just gonna set it in. Make sure it's all good. Put down the latch, the lever, and lock it in place. This little fan here, I just moved it down a little bit on the heatsink. So once you torque these down, we'll just move as close as we can to make sure it's still cooling down this heatsink here, but I think this will work. Hopefully that fan is blowing in that direction and out towards the back of the case, but we'll see. Put on the thermal paste, get some Arctic Silver 5. Just gonna put a small bit right in the middle. About a grain of rice, roughly. Go ahead and line up the heatsink. And we'll torque down the screws and that should be it. Everything's torqued down. This is nice and tight. Move these two just so they didn't fall out and short something on the board if I ever moved it later. So these guys, nice and sturdy, not going anywhere. Got our RAM, so we can go ahead and line these up, pop these in. They're just DDR2, 2 GB each. They don't quite match, but oh well. Just gonna take these levers, push these all out, push each side, clip them in. Just gonna offset the chrome and the black just so it kind of has a pattern. So there's only just one key in the middle that you line up with this hole right here. Press each side. And there we go. It's 8 gigs of RAM, ready to go. Alright, so in the interest of time, didn't bother setting up the test bench, but I did take the power supply that did come with it, just hooked that in, got some power, hooked in the motherboard power, the CPU power here. Oops. I had an old graphics card. This doesn't need any external power, just runs out the power from the slot on the motherboard. Hook that up to an HDMI output, just to this monitor here. So hopefully, if I flick this switch, I got power, and grab this little screwdriver. Do see an LED on the motherboard. It looks like a good sign. So if I go over here, I'm just gonna grab these 2 pins here, the screwdriver. I'm gonna short out these 2 red pins. Hopefully that turns it on. Okay, so we got some fans going. Oh, we got something on the screen. Power supply is making a bit of noise. But it is trying to boot. However, there is no hard drive plugged in, so it's really not going to boot up anything. So yeah, disk boot failure. Insert disk, blah blah blah. So yeah, we know it's going to work. So now I'll just go ahead and start putting this stuff in the case. Don't know if you can hear that, but it doesn't sound very good. So now you can really hear that fan. Doesn't sound good at all. So if I went ahead and unplugged the power, turn off the switch, took off the fan guard, you can hear that. I do have another fan here, however, it does look like it will fit. Okay, so here's the old fan and the new. Definitely quieter. I have to cut off the plug. This one has a 3-pin fan plug, so I'm using that plug from the old one. I'm just going to solder these joins and just tie it in with the rest of the cables. But now it's much quieter. Okay, so here's a new fan. Cables all buttoned up, ready to be put back together. So here's the power supply, new fan, and I found out that when I actually turn this back on, the wind direction is to the right, so we want to make sure we flip this so that it's exhausting out through the back of the case. Then we're good to go and mount it in the case. So the case has a motherboard screws in it all ready to go. I'm just going to throw in the power supply first. Sits in the top like that, 4 screws in the back. Don't actually have a motherboard I/O shield, so that's gonna suck, but we don't really need it. Motherboard sits just like that. So I'm just gonna throw some screws in it and then start hooking up some stuff. Okay, everything's mounted. Power supply, the fan's been switched around, hard drive put in, everything's bolted down. Few wires connected, no wire management yet. Just gotta pop in the graphics card to its slot. So line it up, snap it in, that's it. I'll give it some power here with this guy. Not really too concerned about how it looks right yet. So we'll write these after, but looks okay for now. So now what I got left to do is these guys. So I've got to look up this motherboard online and figure out all the pinouts. So we're gonna have to get them inside there and hook up all the USB ports. See what happens. So we got it running. USB ports, front audio. Do a test with the USB. So that's working. Pulled off the front panel. These LEDs, took these out, didn't work. So I'm going to wire these into the hard drive LED because this LED does not work. Just installing some Windows updates, 119 and 236. Had to reformat the 500 gig, but I've already had 251 already reformatted, so I just use that one instead. Keyboard and mouse looks good. It's ready to button it up. So here's the cable management from the back of the case. In the front, went and added an extra intake fan in the front to make those intakes actually take in air, and as well as an exhaust fan in the back, just get some more air moving throughout the whole case. Finally, here it is, cleaned up, ready to go. Windows 10 installed. Everything's working. If you liked the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to make sure you see the video when we start testing this thing. If there's a game you want us to try, please leave it in the comments below. See you next time.